No one else can help, and if you can find them, maybe you can hire the A-Team.
No! Fucking Charlie everywhere. This is Running with Rifles. It's a top-down military action shooter released in 2015. The core game is two massive forces going toe-to-toe with each other over a large open map. Aside from that, there's not much else to the game aside from some alternative game modes that have some appeal, but I'll touch on that later. For now, I'll focus on the single-player campaign since the multiplayer serves the same function. At the main menu, you're able to get a grip on the mechanics before you start, which is a nice feature because once you start a campaign, it's straight to war. Now, although this area doesn't cover every mechanic in the game, there is a couple buildings you can climb, some crates you can smash, a stash location, and an armory. Before I started the game, I felt that it was important to mess around in here for a little bit, because the default controls are a bit odd. For example, switching between secondary and primary is assigned to B, and crouch and prone have two separate buttons for a toggle. I recommend setting it to toggle so you don't have to concern yourself with holding crouch or prone. After tweaking some settings, it's time to pick the campaign. The campaign is a set of maps that you have to gain control over in order to win. After completing all maps, the game is over. Before starting a campaign, you have a list of settings that you could choose from that allow you to fine-tune the difficulty and parameters of the game. After choosing your campaign and the settings, the last thing you have to pick is a side. There are three sides, the green belts, the brown pants, and the gray collar. Aside from color, the only difference is the base level weapons that each group starts with, but as far as I can tell, they're balanced with some minor differences like clip capacity, accuracy, and fire rate. After confirming your choices, the war begins. So, let's start with the story. There is none. Now that's out of the way, let's talk about the gameplay. Every map is a large terrain that have checkpoints laid out across the map that you have to gain control over. You start on one side and the enemy starts on the other. Get to the other side and push the enemy back to their headquarters to win. The first thing you'll notice is that it's very easy to die. But don't fret because you respawn pretty close to the front line. With this in mind, it's important to leverage every advantage that you can. If you watch Star Wars prequels, you should know that the high ground is key to victory. The second is not losing your limbs. The map varies in altitude with each map, and it's hard to tell the changes from an isometric angle on a cel-shaded design. Luckily, the game did a clever design to the map. They have topographical lines to show the player change in altitude. The closer the lines are together, the steeper the change in elevation. However, I do find it hard to gauge my line of sight sometimes, but once again they have another feature to help with that. In the settings there's an option to turn on the trace line. I highly recommend turning this on. If you find yourself fighting in an uphill battle, the line will let you know when you have a clear line of sight to your enemy. Another feature is the helper in the middle of the crosshair. If you have a line of sight on the enemy, the center dot shows up yellow. If it's not, the dot is red. If the path is obstructed, you'll see a small white X where your aim is currently at. This is a very nice feature that helps when obstructions come into play. So fighting someone behind cover or on a roof is not too much of a hassle in comparison to if you didn't have this feature. When it comes to your aim, your actions have a noticeable impact. Despite this game being called Running with Rifles, the best tactic is to stop and pop. That's not to say that you can't get away with strafing and shooting at the same time, but your accuracy is dramatically affected. Another issue is drawing enemy fire. Since it's easy to die, the enemy AI will detect you first and all it takes is one well-placed shot to kill you. I recommend not doing that unless you got body armor. You have three positions you can fight in: prone, crouching, and standing up. Crouching will make you take cover behind walls so that you can hop over, and prone helps increase the accuracy for most weapons. It's pretty simple and straight to the point. Another neat feature about cover is that if you're crouching behind cover and fire, your character will pop up to fire a shot rather than shooting directly into cover, which is nice so you don't have to micromanage controls. One feature that is missing is the ability to pop out from the end of a wall or a building to fire around corners. This might be a feature, but I'm not sure. If you start to see your group losing ground, slowly retreat while suppressing fire. Otherwise you might find yourself behind enemy lines since the front line can shift with one well executed move. As the game progresses, you earn XP for kills which will work towards your promotion, and as you get promoted you unlock new features. The first feature you get are new weapons that you can use that are restricted by an XP cap. The second are NPCs under your command. It might not be noticeable at first because this game is very subtle about informing you about new features that you've unlocked. Either that or I was just too focused on the battle from being in the shit too long. Having soldiers under your command is nice because it can help you stem the tide and push the front line. What's not nice is the pathfinding. Some buildings have roofs that you can climb ladders to access. The problem occurs when you try to order your soldiers to get on the roof. Some might walk around the buildings, others might climb the ladder and then jump right off. But it's not as big of an issue because there's no fall damage in this game. You and the NPCs can do superhero landings all day and be fine. To prevent issues with the pathfinding, try not to micromanage too much. In other words, keep it simple, because the AI is stupid. So the problem with stupid soldiers is that they die easy. But if you're fighting near the front line, new soldiers in the area will be assigned to your group, so soldiers can replenish pretty quick. So if you're moving past the front line to do a flanking maneuver, do it as quick as possible because you might not get more soldiers. The higher the level, the more soldiers you get to command. The max number is 10. However, the size of your unit is not the only inappropriate pun you'll unlock. You'll also unlock the ability to call in air support. You'll have a variety of air support types at your disposal. At first it'll be light support, like reinforcements and mortar strikes. But with each level you unlock more features like vehicle drops, elite reinforcements, and artillery strikes, which are like mortar strikes, but with bigger payloads. The only issue with artillery support is that your strikes are limited to your view on screen, and the larger artillery puts you in a danger close situation. I wish that I could plot strikes on the map, but if you're able to, let me know, cause I haven't figured it out. These strikes are paid in resource points, or RP for short. There are a variety of ways you can earn RP. For example, you can capture a base, get promoted, spot an enemy vehicle, destroy an enemy vehicle, destroying mission objectives like communication trucks, radar towers, prisoner buses, radar jamming towers, water towers, fuel tanks. Another way to get RP is selling valuables and weapons to an armory. There are multiple types of armories that you can sell these weapons to. There are armories at bases, each faction has a mobile armory in the form of a truck, and supply quads that can be ordered by radio. You can tell what a valuable is because it has a different colored text. Enemies and friendlies drop these at random, and each item has a different value. It can be a hassle to pick up items from a front line and run it all the way back, so it's a good idea to pay attention to the map to see where the nearest armory is located. If an armory is not nearby, you can use a stash to store it until you can find one. Procuring goods from the battlefield is a good way to stack RP, but it's also dangerous too. The more items you pick up, the slower you move, and you can see in your inventory the percentage of encumbrance that you have. Once your percentage goes over 100%, you can no longer run fast or travel. The higher this percentage number goes between 0 to 100 will also slow your movement. If you die, whatever you had on you will drop on the ground, but this is where there's another issue. Each item has a limited time before it despawns. There are random items that have a very high value other than the RP associated with that item. For example, laptops, briefcases, community boxes, blue boxes, purple boxes. The reason that these items are so important is that they unlock advanced gear that are very beneficial. For example, body armor, new weapons, explosives, and turrets. These items can be purchased from armories, but they cost a hefty amount, and you can't respawn with these weapons either. Another way you can unlock advanced weapons is procuring them from elite soldiers. You can tell who these elite soldiers are by how they look. They either look like old young solid Rambo Snake Plissken, or they look like a journalist reporting on a battlefield. They have a variety of weapons that are valuable if you decide to sell them, but there is one caveat to this. You have to get 3 of the same weapon before they can be reproduced in your armory, and some of the rare weapons cannot be reproduced. Every time you turn in a weapon, you'll get a notification on how many more you need to turn in before you can buy them from the armory. Turrets, however, are a bit different. Turrets can't be stolen, they can only be bought. But the only way you can buy these from the armory is if you unlock the blueprint from the briefcase or the laptop. Turrets are really overpowered, but it's balanced by its price and the fact that once it's mounted it can't be picked up. There are a variety of turrets that are really effective and can help prevent an enemy from pushing your team back. For example, there are machine gun turrets, grenade turrets, miniguns, and even turrets that fire missiles. Another neat feature is the ability to assign soldiers under your command to man these turrets. So you could push up while the NPC does the heavy lifting. If you're trying to farm experience points, this is also an effective way to do that, just beware of friendly fire. Friendly fire is a feature but only for vehicle accidents and explosives. Shooting has no effect. I attempted to roleplay as Sergeant Barnes from Platoon just to see if I could, and sure enough, shooting in the direction of your team has no effect. The only consequence to friendly fire is that you lose some RP and XP, but not enough to make a dramatic difference. Unless you order an artillery barrage on your own team, which can happen, especially with the stronger artillery. When you reach the highest levels, you unlock an artillery barrage, but these strikes have a large circumference that takes about a third of the screen. And the AI tends to disregard this, so beware when using this because it can go wrong really fast. There are vehicles in this game that are somewhat effective, but the problem with using them is the health of these vehicles. They tend to die easy and the enemy is guaranteed to have a couple anti-tank weapons nearby. And they cost a lot too, which makes these tanks and combat transports feel like a hassle and a waste of resource points rather than an effective means to push the front line. But who knows, maybe I'm just bad at using them. There are utility vehicles that serve other purposes too: transports, armory trucks, spawn trucks, and supply quads. Transport's straight to the point. They allow 10 people in the vehicle at a time and are useful if you trek a long distance. Armory trucks are very useful too. They serve as mobile armories that allow you to buy any items that you've unlocked in the armory, so you don't have to do suicide runs back and forth to a checkpoint to buy turrets. Spawn trucks are used as mobile spawn points where you can spawn from, but it comes with the caveat, oh boy, there it goes again. It comes with the issue that you can only spawn from it as long as you're not being attacked and no enemies are near the truck. I tend to neglect this vehicle because I usually play single player. NPCs can't spawn from this vehicle, so the value of this vehicle drops off dramatically in single player. If the armory truck or spawn truck is destroyed, it won't reappear at base immediately. You'll have to wait for a cooldown to pass before you can get another one. So I recommend keeping the armory truck safe when you can, since it's a very effective vehicle for gaining leverage on the battlefield. So that's the basics for the mechanics of the game, but what about the small arms? In the loading screen they say that there is no better weapon, but I think that what they mean by that is that there's no end-all be-all weapon. Whatever your playstyle is, there's a variety of weapons at your disposal that can be useful. There are a variety of assault rifles, light machine guns, submachine guns, grenades, shotguns, and some of these type of weapons even come with silence and non-lethal variants. But to summarize it, all of these weapons operate in the same fashion to their real-life counterpart. SMG for short range, assault rifle for mid, sniper rifle for long, and everything has infinite ammo. You don't have to worry about ammo count. All weapons except grenades are infinite. So in this game there are stealth mechanics. Your visibility is determined by several factors: your movement, the enemy phase, equipment, and the day-night cycle. All of these factors revolve around the enemy's detection ability. When certain factors are in effect, the detection range is reduced. For example, crouching and prone reduce visibility. The phase of the enemy is determined on whether or not they're on alert. If the enemies are in combat, the enemies are more aware of their surroundings. Once the combat ends, the detection range is reduced again. And there are some clothing items that you can use to help reduce your visibility, like ghillie suits and tac vests. Mix this with suppressed weapons and you can hide your position effectively. The game also has a day-night cycle. You'll notice the cycle if the fight goes on for too long on the map. I've heard that the cycle is bugged and I've noticed some issues myself, but as far as I could tell, it revolves around the clock rather than the effect. So in short, prone in a ghillie suit with a silenced weapon while the enemy is not on alert at night is the most effective way to kill and stay undetected. So that's about the basics of the game, but that's not all there is to it. There's also a zombie mode, and I don't know, it's okay. On top of that, Steam Workshop mods are enabled too, so there's a good variety of mods that could change a lot of factors to the game. Since the game came out 5 years ago, and the only coverage by video game journalists compared this game to Hotline Miami mixed with Battlefield, there isn't a high populated multiplayer base. The PvP seems to be dead, but the co-op is alive with a hardcore fan base. Another nice feature is when you're done playing and you come back to the same server, your data is saved, so you can keep progressing in a co-op server and not lose progress. I recommend this game if it sounds like something that you're interested in, and the game has minor issues, but it doesn't interfere too much with the overall experience. It's only $15, and if you're still on the fence, they have a demo that you can play for free and see if you like it. If you made it this far, thanks for watching.